2.3 lines. So lines are super important um, because in calculus is 3D, and a lot of it we can break down something that's seems super duper difficult at the time, and we can actually break it down into something we know and something that we would say is easier to work with, which are lines. So that's why we study them a lot, and you'll see at the end of the semester how we connect lines back to three-dimensional stuff. Alright, so we know the slope. Um, so let's calculate and interpret the slope of a line. So we know the slope is the average rate of change of y over the average rate of change of x, which is rise over run. So something that might be new is just interpreting the slope. So when you think of interpret, that means to like describe or translate. Like if you have an interpreter, you're translating what it means. So let's go ahead and find our slope, and since we're going to use a formula, and how do we know we're going to use a formula? It's because they give us 2 points, so we have x1, y1, x2, y2. And the formula we're going to use, because it says to find the slope, we're going to use the slope formula. So, which is m equals y2, which is negative 3, minus y1, which is positive 2, over x2, which is 5, minus x1, which is 1. And we're just going to simplify, so negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. 5 minus 1 is 4. And that is our slope. Just in case you need a little bit refresher, all of these mean the same thing. It doesn't matter where your negative goes, you put it where you want it to go. You can put it on top, middle, bottom, you put it where it's going to best work for you. So let's use this slope of negative 5 over 4 because that's what we found. So what this means is for every 5 units, and since it's negative, negative means you go down. So for every 5 units, the graph moves down. The graph moves positive 4, so since it's positive, you're going right. So when we're graphing this, if we have a slope of negative 5 over 4, that means we go down 5, right 4, down 5, right 4, down 5, right 4. And then you can also go the other way, but since we have negative 5 over 4, we're technically going down and right. Alright, let's find the equation of the line given 2 points. So when you when you see the words, whenever you see these words, find equation line. It doesn't matter what comes before or after. When you see these words, you're going to go through these steps. You don't have to use these steps. You can use any method you know of to find the equation of the line. This is just one of the methods that I think is best, but that just works for me. So use any method you've ever known of or been taught to just find the equation of the line. Usually though, no matter what, your first step is always to find the slope. Sometimes they give it to you, sometimes you have to find it, sometimes it's parallel, sometimes it's perpendicular. And since we're given 2 points, that means we need to use the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And those come from our points that they give us. So let's go ahead and plug them in. We have y2, which is 5, minus y1, which is 3, over x2, which is negative 4, minus x1, which is positive 2. And we're just going to simplify to 2 over negative 6, which is negative 1/3. Doesn't matter where the negative goes. You put it wherever it needs to go. I just like to put it in the middle for this case. Alright, our second step is to use slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. We're going to plug in the m, which we just found. I'll use this color. We're going to plug in x and y from a given point. So they gave us an x and y point. They actually gave us two. You just pick the one you want to work with. So I'm going to pick this one, and that's going to give us b. So I'm going to start off by using the equation y equals mx plus b. That's what we associate with lines. Like if I tell you like what's the equation of a line, or if you ever think about lines, you think about y equals mx plus b, which is slope-intercept form. So the point we're going to use is 2, 3. You could pick -4 or -5. If you want to use this one, by all means use it. I don't want to because it's negative. So that's my x and y, and then our m is -1/3. So all I'm going to do is just plug it in to this formula. So we have y, which is 3, equals m, which is -1/3, times x, which is 2, plus b. We're doing this to get our y-intercept. That's what b is. So let's simplify. We'll have 3 equals -2/3 plus b. We're going to add 2/3 to both sides. And when we do 3 plus 2/3, so 3 plus 2/3, we get 11/3 equals b. Use your calculator. If not, do it by hand. You know how to do it by hand. And if you don't, let me know. I have videos. If you struggle with fractions, let me know. I can work with you. We can work together. I can send you videos and worksheets. Just let me know if you need help with fractions. So that's what we got for b. Now, our third step is to, once you have b, which we do, you're going to plug it into y equals mx plus b with m, which is the slope. So we're going to use y equals mx plus b again. This time, we're going to use what we found. So we found in step 1 that m is -1/3. We found in step 2 that b is 11/3. That's what we found in steps 1 and 2. So now we're going to plug them in back into y equals mx plus b. So we have y equals -1/3 x plus b, so that's plus 11/3. Now we have y equals mx plus b. If we need to, step 4, if it asks, you need to put it in standard or general form. That's ax plus by equals c. That means no fractions are allowed and a must be positive. So we're going to take this fourth step. Why are we taking this fourth step? Because it told us to express in standard form. So this fourth step is ax plus by equals c. But a needs to be positive, and you can't have any fractions. So what we're going to do here is add 1/3 of x. So we have 1/3 x plus y equals 11/3. So you see how we have x and y on the same side? Now we just need to get rid of the fractions. And in order to get rid of the fractions, I'm going to multiply by 3 because that's the denominator. And when we do, we're left with x plus 3y equals 11. All it does is it gets rid of the fractions, and then you multiply it to y. That's our final answer. On the test, I will not be asking for standard form. So you do not have to do step 4 on the test. It's just some questions on your homework. All right, parallel and perpendicular lines. So parallel lines have the same slope but different y-intercept. So what I associate parallel with is same. Let me change that color. I associate parallel with same. Then we have perpendicular lines, which have negative reciprocal slopes. So what does negative reciprocal slope mean? It means you flip and change the sign. Also, a fun fact about perpendicular slopes, if you have two slopes and you multiply them together, it equals -1. That's just a fun fact. And if the equation is the same, the lines are the same. No duh. So I don't really associate anything to perpendicular. It just, to me, I'm just going to have to always remember it's the opposite. I flip it and change the sign. But parallel, I can easily associate same. And you're going to see how that comes up in the next following example. Not in example 3, but later on today. Alright, example 3. Find an equation of the line that contains the point 1, -2, and is perpendicular to the line x plus 3y equals 6. And then part B of that is find the line containing the same point and parallel to the same line. So first part. First part wants us to find equation line. Since it states that, we're going to go through the steps, or whatever steps you want to go through. It doesn't matter how you do it. So it gives us a point, and it tells me it's perpendicular to x plus 3y equals 6. So it doesn't matter though, if I see those three words, find equation line, my first step is to find the slope. And usually that's everyone's first step, no matter what method you're using. So to find the slope, it tells me that the slope is perpendicular to this line. That means the slope comes out of that line. So it tells me it's perpendicular to x plus 3y equals 6. So let's find the slope here. Let's find the slope of this line that they gave us. So I'm going to subtract x, and I'm left with 3y equals, wrong color, my bad. I'm left with 3y equals -x plus 6, and then I'm going to divide everything by 3. And when we do, we get y equals -1/3 x plus 2. So the given slope is -1/3. That's the given slope. But it says it's perpendicular to this. So that means we're going to use flip -1/3. So what's the opposite of negative? Positive. If you flip 1/3, it becomes 3. So we're going to use +3 as our slope, because that's perpendicular to -1/3 slope. Alright, our second step, it's not going to change. We're going to use y equals mx plus b. And what we're doing there is we're going to be plugging in x, y, and also, let me change the color of that. We're plugging in x and y, and also we're going to plug in our m. Doesn't want to work with me. There we go. So we're going to plug in x, y, and m. So our y, we have -2, and that equals m times x plus b. Our m is +3. Our x is +1. Now let's just simplify here. So that's -2 equals 3 times 1 is 3 plus b. We're going to subtract 3 to both sides. And we get -5 is our b. Now our third step is to use y equals mx plus b again, but plug in what you found. So in step 1, we found out that the slope is +3, and in step 2, we found out that b is -5. So that's what we're going to plug in. We have y equals 3x minus 5. Now, on the test, this is where you would be done. Your answer would be y equals 3x minus 5. But how did they ask the question. What form is the question asked in? The question is asked in standard form. So since it's asked in standard form, we must answer in standard form. So we're going to take that fourth step and go into standard form. And to do that, we're going to subtract 3x. So we have negative 3x plus y equals negative 5. Great, I don't have fractions, but a cannot be negative. So all you're doing, you know, like this is what you want to do. You want to multiply by negative 1, right, to get rid of it, or some of you divide by negative 1. All you're doing is just switching the signs. That's it. So let's just get that into our head now that all we're doing is switching the signs. So switch every sign. Negative becomes positive 3x. Positive becomes negative y. Negative 5 becomes positive 5. And literally, that's the same thing. That's all you're doing is just switching the signs. You're making everything the opposite. Alrighty. So, part B. Let's find the line containing the same point and parallel to the same line. So now it states that it's parallel to the line that they gave us. So parallel means same. So let's find our slope. So it states that it's parallel to x plus 3y equals 6. So remember, parallel means same. So we're going to use the same slope. So I can't draw arrows to save my life. So we're going to use the same slope that's here. And we found it. The slope that we found was negative 1/3. So we're going to use negative 1/3. That's the slope we're going to use. Then we're going to repeat all of the same steps. So step 2, we're going to plug it into y equals mx plus b. We're going to use the same numbers. The only thing we're changing is this right here. That's all we're changing, is the m. So we'll have negative 2 equals negative 1/3 times 1 plus b. And then we're going to simplify. So negative 2 equals negative 1/3 plus b. Let's go ahead and add 1/3 to both sides. So negative 2 plus 1/3 is negative 5/3. And that's our b. So now we're going to plug in what we found into step 3. So what we found was m, and we also found b. So let's plug it in. We have y equals negative 1/3 x plus b, so minus 5/3. Now, since it asks in standard form, we must answer in standard form. So let's go ahead and answer in standard form by adding 1/3 to both sides. We do that because we want ax by plus c. My bad, let me rewrite that. So that's why we move over 1/3 x, because we want x and y on the same side. So we have 1/3 x plus y equals negative 5/3. And let's get rid of these nasty fractions by multiplying by 3. All it does is just gets rid of our denominator. So we have x plus 3y equals negative 5. And x is positive, so we're good to go. Alright, special types of slopes. We have undefined slopes. That means you have number equals x, and that's always undefined. It creates a vertical line. Then you have zero slope, which is y equals a number, and it creates a horizontal line. So let's graph the line that goes through 2, negative 3, and has an undefined slope. Find the equation of the line. So yes, you see here undefined slope is x equals, but obviously these are the notes. What if you didn't have the notes? How do you remember this? How I remember this, it's a little ridiculous. Okay, but you should know that by now. So undefined means you can't do it. So if you're undefined, it means you don't know what to do, you can't do it, it's just kind of impossible. And 0 means you just don't have a chance. That doesn't mean it's impossible, you just don't have a chance. So how I like to think about it is if you have an undefined slope, so if I drew that out, it's a vertical line. Can you walk up and down a vertical line? No. Like, can you walk straight up a building? No, we have to use the stairs, right? We have to use the slope to get to where we need to go. Okay, what about 0 slope, horizontal line? Looks something like that. Can you walk a flat surface? Absolutely. We do it every day in Florida. It's pretty flat here. You can walk a flat surface. So that's how I remember, is that if I'm in a pickle, I'll draw both graphs. I'll draw a vertical line and I'll draw a horizontal line. And then I'm like, okay, I can't walk up and down a straight line. So since I can't do it, I know it's undefined. A flat surface, flat means 0 slope. Think of snowboarding, like slopes. If it's a 0 slope, it's flat. So let's graph the line that goes through 2, negative 3 and has an undefined slope. So 2, negative 3. That's right here. Undefined slope. I think to myself, undefined. That's straight up and down. Now, what axis did we go through? The orange line goes through the x-axis, and x is 2. That's the equation of the line. All right, now let's graph the line that goes through negative 1, 9, and has a 0 slope. Find the equation of the line. So let's go ahead and plot this point, negative 1, 9. Just put it right here. I didn't go to 9, but it doesn't matter. It's all the way up there. All right, 0 slope. Okay, 0 slope. I can remember that if I draw it out. We have flat, so 0 slope. It's a horizontal line. And then what axis did this go through? It goes through the y-axis, and the y is 9. Does it always work that way? Yes, it does. All right, let's find the equation of the line that is parallel to the line x equals 11 and contains the point negative 2, 7. All right, parallel, what does that mean to you? It should mean same. Same. So what's the same as x? What's the same thing as x? It's x. That's the same thing as x, right? Yeah, what's the same thing as orange? Orange. What's the same thing as a banana? Banana. What's the same thing as 1? 1. So the same thing as x is x. So then, what's the x in the point? Negative 2. All right, if you have a TI-84 or an 83 or an 82 or an 89, then you can follow these steps to graph a line with your calculator. They're very easy to follow. I'm not going to even need to show you because I can't. So just follow the steps, and I promise that you can get through it. It's going to be very, very simple to graph this on your own. So the first thing that we need to do anytime you're graphing using your calculator, and this is how you graph everything on a calculator. If you want to graph something, these are the steps to graph it. So you need to get it into y equals. So we want to solve it to be y equals something. So let's get our equation and solve for y. That's everything. If you're going to graph it using a calculator, solve for y. So we subtract 3x to both sides. And we have negative 2y equals negative 3x plus 6. And then divide by negative 2. So we're now left with y equals 3 over 2x minus 3. Okay, so now on your calculator, go to the top left and hit the y equals button. After you hit the y equals button, make sure the equation has isolated the y and input the equation into y1. So you see how it's like y1 and it's flashing? In that flashing point, go ahead and put 3 over 2x minus 3. So if you hit alpha y equals enter, you'll get the fraction bar. But if you don't have a fraction bar and you're a little confused on how to get that, wrap it in parentheses. So that's how I would plug it in if you don't have a newer calculator. After you plug it in, go ahead and hit graph. Graph is the top right button. If you need points, because sometimes it's hard to tell where it crosses, if you need points, hit second graph. So hit the second button to the left, it's the blue button, and then hit the graph button. It'll give you points. And the points that you'll see, it gives you a whole bunch. You'll see 0, -3, and you'll also see 2, 0. And the graph should look something like this. It's not the only time we'll graph in the class. I will eventually show you. And if you have questions about that, I can show you in person.